Welcome. I really don't know how much time this will take, but probably this might be the shortest stream ever if I get it on the first time. Oh yeah. Let's do this.
You can become a real human. Come to me, my I never put you into the Grand Covenant like the other puppet because of Carl's memories within you. So long. I knew you had gone astray.
Injustice.
You can become a real human. Come to me, my son.
No. Fucking animation taking so fucking long. Son of a bitch.
I never belonged to the Grand Covenant like the other puppets because of Carlo's memories within you. How dare you?
Ah,
You're
shit!
just a puppet. Nothing more. Bring you back, Carlo.
And now T-Bug. Son of a bitch.
You can become a real human. Come to me, son. real human. Come to me, my son.
No. God damn you. I'm pressing kurwa.
I never bound you to the grand covenant like the other puppets because
Man,
of Carlo's memories with mine. Now, I'll turn you into a real. You can become a real human. Come to me, my son. I never bound you to the grand covenant of the other puppets because of Carlo's memories within you. I know you've gone astray. Now, I'll turn you real. You can become a real human. Come to me, my son. I never waited so long to bring you back, Carlo. You can become a real human. Come to me, my son. I never bound you to the grand covenant like the other puppets because of Carlo's memories within you. I know you have gone astray. You can become a real human. Come to me, my son. I never bound you to the grand covenant of the other puppets because of Carlo's memories within you. Now, I know you have gone astray.
Ah.
You can become a real human. Come to me. I never bound you to the grand covenant like the other puppets because of Carlo's memories within you. Now, you can become a real human. Come to me. useless because of Carlo's memories within you. And you gone astray. You troublesome little puppet. Your freedom is not for you, Carlo. How dare you? You're just a puppet, nothing more.
I forgot to introduce myself. I am the workshop lead.
No!
The next evil is coming.
Oh yeah! Bitch! Bitch! That ain't that shit, man.
Were you going to destroy Carlo's heart?
Yeah, I can end the stream now. I'm finished. I finished the game. Fucking hell, man. Stop.
No. You're just useless.
Extra final boss. Because you have option to not fight him. Ah, sorry. Free from the puppet's ring. Reach the ending. Wow. And end of the stream, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. See you tomorrow.
Tu n'as rien fait pour chercher à me plaire.
This could be like
T'aimes pourtant
this could be like a YouTube short instead of like a real stream. Like a fucking hell.
me semble pourra me défaire. Tu seras toujours.
Keep
I
fucking.
have a final report on the Crot experiment. You certainly took your time, Paracelsus. Your findings?
I think we have a new brother. A new type of humanity, so to speak.
There are many forms of eternal life.
It's intriguing, and worth further observation.
Noted. And we'll have to get his arm back anyway.
I'm counting on it. Expect another report at the next meeting. Paracelsus returning. Ah, and when I return, I will find her. For sure. Another key of ours. Dorothy.
Ooh. So there's a hint for Lies of Pi too. Holy shit, that is sick. That is sick. If you start next play, you won't be able to continue the current play. Do to continue. Items below will not be inherited. All collected crowd supply boxes when you collect. The fuck? Aha.
Welcome to...
Oh yeah. Yeah, I need to I think I don't know what they're gonna do, but it's cool. Where this fucker is? He's here. God damn it. Where is this shit? Bitch!
What the... What does it matter? I see for yourself.
We have immunity to all attribute status. Wow, that is so sick. And this cannot be the same. Proof of humanity. That's the last weapon. Should I take this or? Yeah, let's get the Why is speed chat not working? Fucking shit was unmuted.
Me, said Al.
Man, what to do now? Hey, like, I finished. Yeah, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to ask my friend, is he home? Okay, let's restart, yeah, like. New game plus.
Can you hear me? Geppetto's puppet.
I wonder, yeah. Oh my god, this tutorial song.
Ah, there you are. I've been looking all over for you. I see they got Jiminy too. My name, Jiminy, please escort him to the hotel. Let's get you out of there. Find something that might help.
Oh, there's a new one. Oh, wait. Now it's blocked, yeah? Because I know. Oh man. I'll be at home like in 1.5 hours. 1.5 hours. Okay, guys, I'm working.
The station employee has the train station keys.
Oh man.
You cannot see in the dark. Switch me on and I can't feel like rotating.
Oh man.
Songitto said, "Man, I want to get re-4." Songitto said, "But my friend have it." Paco 2049 said, "That's why you gotta buy digital broski."
No, fuck out. Fucking hell. The hell? part of the cleanest plan. Can I buy it separately? It's a fucking add-on. Fuck! I would have to pay 48 plus this. God damn it! Damn! I don't wanna, I already buy it. I don't wanna pay this much money. And this is even like a steal because it's the no, you know. Do I have to have fourth like? Thank you for the liking.
Rerum Trading said, 4th like.
Thank you very much. Hey, oh my god, do you have to?
Rerum Trading said, I dropped a sub on you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. We have to have place RE4. Place place. And do you have to have base? Once you start the game again, you will find a section in the main menu just below of the music. If you do not see separate, please ensure that DLC has been correctly done, especially if you have purchased both on the PlayStation Store. How to start? Supervise. You want this. Ah! Do I need to play other? Do I? Why didn't? How long is it? Oh. I'm gonna wait one day. That's okay. Look, it's not gonna go away. And tomorrow I'm gonna like I'm gonna like penetrate this game really hard tomorrow. Fucking hell, man. I would be playing right now if I had it. Lies of P. Ultimate Edition. Hey, Rerum, thank you for subscribing. Got this. Yo, boy, I buy this deluxe. It's enough. I don't know. Where is this fucker? I'm gonna kill him. You dead, motherfucker. Okay. Because I didn't take this guy seriously enough. That's why I got this screwed. Fuck you, man. Don't you ever do this. Light frame +1. I cannot imagine people playing this game like 6-7 times. Like I can imagine. If this is the only game you have, then it's like fine. Hey Paco, you wanna play Elden Ring? I can show you some strats. Should I restart my build? No, not. Or maybe I should watch some like lore I kinda know what's gonna what happened in this game. Yes, gentlemen. Get lost. Oh, man.
The black guy said, "What's up?"
Hey, how long this span up? How long it takes? Okay, it's 2.5 hour game. That's fast. Wanna play FNAF?
The black guy said, I'ma go by.
Go by. Okay, guy. Go.
Destination Hotel Grind. Optimal location for observing the destination.
A powerful parade puppet is blocking the entrance, and that's the only way in. So please, be careful.
Hello there. You didn't hear? You ought to be out here alone.
Oh, what the fuck?
This is called a... As we are, gather ergo, clever with the stargazers...
Out here alone?
I shouldn't. This guy shouldn't be adopted. Now you can see the titles, yeah?
One more thing I should mention. The hotel's security excludes puppets like you. So you'll have to lie to get inside. You're a special puppet after all.
Grand Covenant's fourth floor, welcome.
Imagine they make Lies of D because Dorothy.
I am Sophia. You must have. He was last. Please find Japan. Look at Gemini. That's proof. I know and wait. Krot is a. Be careful. I'll use my.
Level me up. I have to talk with everybody. I can.
I heard you should take. You must be. Oh, I know my. If any, I know my way around. I know my way.
Get that thing off of me. Ah.
Welcome. My name. Please let hotel. Welcome.
Unexplored. Does she? If it doesn't, it can't. He's fine. People have. Thanks for. I see. You lie. People on the. I see you're here.
I wonder, this is still here? I think when they're making New Game Plus, they should like reinvent something. I think I...
Hey, let's be more careful. The Black Rabbit Brotherhood. I hate these guys. But don't be alarmed. My name is Gemini. We'll talk later, when we're safe. Elysian Boulevard was a regular rich people row. You wanted fancy boutiques and shops. No place better. But long ago, before the puppet frenzy.
Oh, it's lighter, but
Why, hello. I know.
Don't worry.
For your information.
I'm Jiminy, your friendly puppet guy. Last time I woke up, Sophia was there because... Sorry. Must be... Wait. I can sense something... strange. Jeepers. Is that a butterfly? Why is the ergo reacting like that? If you want to check it out, I can take point.
Babe, thank you so much. The royal is waiting and...
Geppetto! You've got a lot to answer for! You know what caused the puppet frenzy, don't you? You and the alchemists. What's your problem? Wait, you're the devils. You can't sneak past me. Die! Cursed puppet! Are you a dream or a nightmare? Stop showing up already. I demanded the truth. Now I feel bad for my comrade.
It's a dream come true. I understand. But in order... Won't you?
So about that weapon assembly tool, if you find any more weapon. No survivors here. What do we do? Just give her that baby puppet?
said, "What's our country song?"
Oh my god. Almost done. I don't know. I'm gonna play. I don't know if I wanna play too much of this game. This guy is cheating. Standing in my way. Man, what a bitch! What a bitch! Bitch.
Asura. Said. Korva.
I have idea. Oh, fucking hell, I did. What a bullshit. What a bullshit. Kurwa! fuck was that?
You found her, kind one. I could sense her from miles away. Oh, please let me hear her there, my baby. What's wrong?
Ah, always speaking, my friend. P organ. Remember, be careful, beware.
God, this is all bullshit.
The city asked me, Vanini work. The city asked me. You can get from City Hall to the factory with the key I just gave you.
I picked up. Why don't we make Mr. Vinny the puppets? You're going. He's the richest. I heard he. I know my way.
Vanini works. Everything you see here belongs to Vanini, the classiest playboy and most brilliant inventor in Krot. Just ask him. Not just puppets. Almost every machine and tram in Krot is supplied from here. You gotta be curious about the... What kind of person is he? I wish we could find him. That is, if he's still here.
And nothing.
Come now, Forrest. Now, it's time. Correct. Yes. What's all doors? Mine.
Yeah, I was dennoch. Oh, fuck off. Fuck. Whatever. Like, it's...
Like any good Souls-like, Lies of P has a few different endings, each with cryptic details to uncover and explain. The ending you get is determined by your choices in the game and the lies or truths you tell. In this video, I will be going through each of the 3 endings and explaining them, from the straightforward facts to the obscure details to even the sequel hints. I hope you enjoy, and if you do, feel free to subscribe to see more content like this. Obviously, be warned for spoilers. In all the endings, we fight our way up the Alchemist's stronghold for a climactic battle with the head of the Alchemists, Simon Pistris Manus. Simon is the main cause for the petrification disease spreading throughout Krat. He used the resulting ergo to try to become a new evolved lifeform that would usher in a world without lies. He definitely had deep-seated issues from childhood, but I don't want to delve further into that here since he is the same in all the endings. His story and the trials of Krat are just the backdrop for the more real or personal story going on with our character and Geppetto. After defeating Manus and traveling down the elevator, there is a chance to get any one of 3 different endings. 2 of them are extremely similar and one is more distinct and darker. I will start with that last one. The ending is titled Real Boy. They all lived happily ever after. This ending can be acquired regardless of what choices you make throughout the game. All you have to do is, here at the end, choose to give Geppetto your heart when he asks for it. He will then take your heart out and put it into a body he brought along in his box, which will then revive as a kind of evil or destructive Carlo. Carlo was the name of Geppetto's real son and the name of the writer of Pinocchio, and his heart is the one that powers your puppet body in-game. We then see the new, revived Carlo murder everyone still remaining at Hotel Krat, at the behest of Geppetto. All of our friends and companions are slaughtered in cold blood. Then they are replaced with lifeless puppets who all exist to serve us, or Carlo. And even in this ending, when Geppetto is reunited with his long-dead son, the one who he kind of abandoned in life, he goes away again. He leaves a letter saying that he will make Krat safe for us, talking about the petrification disease like it's a minor nuisance. This ending is very obviously bad-coded. The new Carlo seems to be a puppet slave for Geppetto, despite being called a real boy, the dream of the original Pinocchio from the fairy tale. This Carlo kills the companions his heart grew to trust and work with, all because he was asked or told to by Geppetto, an absentee father who we see in memories the real Carlo hated.
I don't care if an old man like that kicks the bucket.
We might get a human body of some kind in this ending, or otherwise become a real person in some way, but it is clear we are really just a puppet dancing on someone else's string, namely Geppetto's. Sophia remarks at the end, asking us,
Is this truly the future you wanted?
Fair to say this is a bad ending, and it does give us the post-credits cutscene, but I want to wait to cover each ending before delving into that. So we saw what happens when you give your heart to Geppetto. If, on the other hand, you refuse his request, you can get one of two different endings. If you answer most of your choices throughout the game by telling the truth, you will get what I want to call the good-ish ending, titled Free from the Puppet String. And just a note, lots of the online guides say different things about how to get this and the next ending, claiming you need to always tell the truth or always lie or other requirements that I don't think are true. I know you can get the next ending by lying only most of the time, you don't need to always lie, so I think you can get this ending by telling the truth just most of the time. And probably not killing Sophia when she asks, but I'm less certain about that requirement. So once you refuse Geppetto, he will release the nameless puppet on you. We learn from its ergo that the nameless puppet was the first puppet made by the old man that was mounted with a P organ. But because it was destructive, it was not chosen for the boy's body and sealed away. Geppetto takes it out as a last resort to get the heart from us. In his dialogue we hear during the fight, Geppetto reveals that he gave us his son Carlo's heart. He didn't bind us to the Grand Covenant, the set of rules that most puppets have to follow, so that the heart would grow while having freedom. This was so it could one day be used to revive the real Carlo, and that he wouldn't be burdened by the Grand Covenant, I assume. We learn earlier in the game that puppets are powered by ergo, which can come from people, especially those afflicted by the petrification disease. Sometimes a human ego can awaken within a puppet, especially if the puppet looks like the original person. Geppetto likely tried this with our puppet body, but as he points out, we never got Carlo's memories. Though if we did, we would probably hate Geppetto anyways, so probably not too good of a plan for him. While we don't have his memories, Geppetto remarks how he did inherit Carlo's personality, since
I suppose Carlo was mischievous.
That's not enough, so Geppetto wants to use Carlo's heart, a whole mess of ergo, and the Arm of God artifact to make the new psycho killer Carlo we see in the bad ending. And if that's his ideal version, Geppetto probably doesn't want the real Carlo back anyways. Blinded by his grief and possibly just a selfish person in general, he just wants the puppet version of Carlo he sees in his head, one who will come live as a family with him and do what he says as his father. Once the nameless puppet gets to phase 2, we anime slice its head off, and it erupts in golden ergo, losing the strings Geppetto controlled it with. Once we beat its second phase, we get a cutscene where it gets to beat us in combat, lame. It is about to stab us through the heart, but Geppetto stops it. The puppet is destructive, so it just wants to body us. But Geppetto can't let any harm come to Carlo's heart, or he might have to actually face the fact that his son is dead and stop running away from it. We then turn into Gigachad and destroy the nameless puppet's core. So far, all of this has been exactly like what we will see in the next ending. The differences start as Geppetto keels over and we go to support him. In this ending, as we hold the dying Geppetto, he says,
I know it. You're just a useless puppet.
Then he dies. This ending concludes here, save for the post-credit scene we will get to later. Geppetto's final line will make more sense when we look at the final ending, but in short, it is about how he views us as nothing more than a puppet. Puppets are supposed to never lie, and in this playthrough, we tell the truth more than we lie. So we basically act like a puppet. We are free from Geppetto's strings, as the name of the ending suggests, but if we want to really see what it's like to leave behind the shackles of puppetdom, we must look at the final ending. The last ending to Lies of P is a rhyme to the game's title. It's called Rise of P. You can get this ending like the previous one by refusing to give Geppetto your heart. The difference is that throughout your playthrough, you need to have lied most of the time. And you likely need to have given Sophia peace when she asked, though again, I'm not as 100% sure on that. Once this ending begins, it is the same as the Free from the Puppet String ending up until Geppetto's death. Here, he still saves us from Nameless, but once we are holding him, something else happens. The camera shows a tear running down our cheek. Geppetto recognizes this and says,
I'm sorry, son.
Before dying. I took this to be about how the lying throughout the game has made us more human. It has caused our heart to grow to the point that we are essentially a real human who can feel human emotions. In this final moment, either our character developed an attachment for Geppetto, or Carlo's heart moves within us and cries at his father's death. Even if he didn't like him, Carlo might still be moved to see Geppetto pass. Geppetto's words recognize this. They show that he now sees us as his son, Carlo. Even if we may not have his memories, we have become a real human who can feel, and we feel his death like a human would. Then we get another cutscene before the credits. Apparently, there's a ready-made Sophia puppet. Maybe not too weird considering Manus was kind of obsessed with her. And we give Ergo to that puppet, returning the favor from the beginning of the game when Sophia gave us Ergo. The Sophia puppet wakes up as we pass out, and she says,
"It's so good to see you.
This echoes her first words to us at the game's beginning.
I'm so happy to see you."
After the credits, we can explore and find a note from her, but before we get to that, there is the post-credit scene to discuss. After the credits, we find the man who called himself Giangio on a train. Giangio is the name of one of the characters in the original Pinocchio story, but we see here that the character is actually called Paracelsus, and he is communicating with someone from an outside organization. Philippus Paracelsus, or Paracelsus, is the name of a real-world Swiss physician, alchemist, and philosopher from the 1500s. When we first met Giangio, he pretended to be an alchemist pretending to be a pharmacist, and he talks about how the dose of a substance determines if it's a medicine or a poison, which is an idea attributed to the real Paracelsus in our world. So this basically confirms the name as a reference. The org he talks to has an interest in kinds of humanity and eternal life. They mention us as a kind of brother, or new humanity. Maybe we are a new kind of immortal or eternal being, this new human puppet lifeform that we have become. And this might be a reach, but his hair color is a bit like ours after being influenced by Sophia. And Sophia mentions her powers being time-related, which would tie into the themes about eternity. On the call, the voice notes that
we'll have to get his arm back anyway.
Which could be a reference to our mechanical arm, that's the first most obvious one, but I think that doesn't make sense, since we learn that the Legion arm is a creation of Geppetto and modified by Vanini. It is more likely that the Eternals are talking about the arm of God, the item we get when we defeat Manus. This item let Mr. Eugenics in some way summon a godlike being in the sky, and its description talks about being a mysterious relic even to the alchemists. So this mysterious organization of Eternals is likely interested in this God arm, and apparently they had it before if they want to get the arm back. Who or whatever that god is, this organization is likely closer to it than anything else in Krat, except maybe for one new character. Paracelsus ends his cutscene saying he will find another key to the organization.
Dorothy.
And then the camera focuses on an obscured book. The design shown is the first edition cover of The Wizard of Oz, which has Dorothy as the main character. Then in a shot on the rooftops of Krat, we see someone walking in ruby slippers before they click their heels 3 times. This is another reference to Oz, where Dorothy must acquire the ruby slippers and click her heels 3 times to return to her home of Kansas. Maybe this Dorothy was scouting Krat out and is now returning to her home, which I'm assuming isn't plain old Kansas, but maybe that's her base of operations. This could be a reference to a DLC or a sequel, where more fairy tale characters come into play as part of the world of Eternals. A YouTube comment I saw pointed out that Tin Man, one of the other main characters of Wizard of Oz, was looking for a heart, and a metal puppet with a heart, like the character we play as, could fit as that character. Maybe Dorothy was scoping us out to possibly get us to join her crew. We don't know what form this will take, but with the Eternals organization out there plotting something, there's likely some grander conflict that we will learn about, and maybe be pulled into, whether that's by Dorothy, Paracelsus, or someone else. There is definitely some greater story that is being hinted at, but we will have to wait and see to learn what's really going on. And to wrap things up, the game lets us keep playing after the cutscenes and credits. We can see that everyone in the hotel is thankful that the trials of the game are over, and they're all real people in this ending, not puppets. Sophia leaves a note marveling that an Ergo puppet can become a new form of human, that's us, and she says she will stay away for the time being. We get the option to jam out on the piano in the hotel, and we can also find another letter left by Paracelsus at his old location near the gold coin fruit tree. He expresses excitement at our development, and he talks about meeting on the eternal line of time. He signs off PP, which confirms that he is named after the real Philippus Paracelsus. The note about time again makes me think of Sophia when she talked about how her power is related to time, and this makes me think that the hair connection isn't so far-fetched. So there we have each of the endings of Lies of P explained. Let me know in the comments if you have any more questions about the endings that have been left unanswered. If you like this content, you can subscribe.
Lies of P is a Souls-like with a very mysterious story, one that we'll be attempting to uncover throughout this video, along with critiquing the quality of its story along the way. Very quickly before we begin, thanks to NeoWiz and Round 8 Studio for providing me a code early, allowing me to play the game before release, and as always, spoiler warning ahead. We're going to be talking about this game's story and endings in this video, so please be sure to complete the game before you watch this. If you like this kind of story analysis content, feel free to check out my other videos here on the channel. I don't just have videos on the Souls games and some Souls-likes, but other genres as well, so feel free to stick around. With that out of the way though, let's get started. The beginning of the game starts with a blue butterfly reviving someone called Geppetto's puppet. We'll then learn that not only is the butterfly being controlled by a girl named Sophia, but that we also have a talking cricket companion inside of a lamp called Gemini. The references are pretty on the nose, but it's to be expected, as if you didn't catch it, let me tell you now that Lies of P is a reimagining of the original story of Pinocchio. That's why the very beginning pays respects to Carlo Collodi, as he was the one who created the 1880 fantasy novel The Adventures of Pinocchio. The references here are just the tip of the iceberg, however, as many characters and bosses in this game reference their novel counterparts. For example, in the novel, Pinocchio is followed by a talking cricket that advises and aids him just like Gemini does to us. And Sophia is related to the Blue Fairy from the novel, who in the text was the one who granted Pinocchio's nose the ability to extend whenever he lied. She was described as a young woman with turquoise hair, which fits the bill of our Sophia. Not all the characters are direct references, as others are just using the characters' names, like Puccinella, the butler of Vanini, who in the novel shares the name of a marionette that's performing at a theater. I will admit, this idea is what drew me to Lies of P in the first place. Souls-likes tend to be very samey after a while, as most just have items with descriptions and then place them in a generic fantasy world under siege from something. It's not very innovative, especially nowadays, but a Souls-like based on a children's fairy tale is certainly a nice change of pace, and even when the game falls into those aforementioned fantasy elements, it continues to stay in its lane and keep things centered around the adventures of Pinocchio. Say what you will about Lies of P, it's distinctly unique and really separates itself from the rest of the genre. With that being said, anytime a character appears with some amount of relevance to the novel, I'll be sure to point them out. Returning to the story, while we don't have a name as the game never provides us with one, it's safe to assume the puppet's name is Pinocchio, which is how I'll be referring to them from now on. Pinocchio is then instructed by Sophia to go to the nearby hotel to arm himself, as the puppets along the way are dangerous. To set the scene, Lies of P takes place in the city of Krat. This place used to be a small fishing village for the discovery of ergo. In-game, ergo is what we collect upon defeating enemies and what we use to level up. This substance threw Krat into a golden age, as it was able to enter into a technological revolution. The people responsible for most of the work behind Krat's new life is a group called the Alchemists. Their leader was one Valentius, who was able to understand and channel the energy of ergo, allowing him and his group to create completely new technology. One such tech was the creation of the puppets. These autonomous beings are designed to do whatever they were made to. Some of them were workers and maids, and others were butlers and policemen. This gave humanity the chance to take a hands-off approach to numerous parts of their life, allowing the puppets to do it for them. The maker of these puppets was a craftsman known as Geppetto, who was one of the most well-known members of the workshop. The mass production of all this new technology was then handled by Lorenzini Vanini, and with this newfound partnership, Krat was able to flourish. That wasn't until a puppet killed a human. A puppet named Arlecchino, who is the same puppet who gives us all the riddles, killed Vanini's parents just to see what would happen. This would have caused a monumental backlash for everyone involved, so they decided to try and cover up the mystery by claiming that it was a mugging instead of a murder, leading people to believe that it was a human and not a puppet. This incident made Geppetto realize that commands needed to be hard-coded into the puppet so they could prevent more deaths. As such, each puppet has 4 basic principles imprinted into them called the Grand Covenant. These are, obey the commands of the creator, never hurt a human, protect and serve Krat and its people, and never lie. Geppetto, with the help of Vanini, was successful in creating a code of law that the puppets are forced to abide by. However, that didn't seem to last, as the puppets have clearly gone mad and are attacking the city. As such, a group of vigilantes known as Stalkers have been dispatched in order to stop them. While the Stalkers are all the same, the people they serve is where the difference lies. The two groups are the Bastards and the Sweepers. The Bastards are under the Alchemists in the workshop, while the Sweepers ally themselves to the old families of Krat. They don't get much mention in this game, but the old families of Krat are obviously the older families that used to own the city, but due to the discovery of ergo and the power it came with thanks to the Alchemists in the workshop, they've been in close competition ever since. This whole fiasco regarding the puppets is also known in-game as the Puppet Frenzy, and it's our job to stop it. But that's quite the Herculean task, so we're going to start small and figure out where Geppetto is, and then hopefully rescue him before any danger comes his way. This is where the gameplay comes in and starts to flex its wings a bit. I won't talk too much about the gameplay, but I do at least want to go over the basics for those of you who haven't played it. Basically, it's a Souls game. I can't even say that as a joke either, as just about everything in the Souls games is here too. Bonfires, Estus flasks, backstab, stagger bar, the fact that jump is only able to be used while sprinting. It's pretty much all here, and honestly borders on the line of plagiarism at times, especially since Pinocchio's Legion arms are basically Wolf's prosthetic arms, both in design and functionality. The game does attempt to try and introduce new mechanics to separate itself, but most of the combat is pretty much one-to-one if you've played a Souls game, which may or may not be a good thing depending on how you feel about them. Circling back to where we left off, while we explore the train station, we learn from a couple of notes that the city is bracing for a resurgence of the petrification disease. It's unclear where this came from and how it started, but the disease petrifies those it affects by hardening their skin, and is something that's going to keep popping up every now and again throughout the game, but for now let's focus on the frenzy. As we can see, the town is already in shambles, with the dead lining the streets while the puppets aimlessly wait for their next target. Due to the nature of the frenzy, it's natural to call into question Pinocchio and why he wasn't affected. Well, it seems to stem from Geppetto. He made Pinocchio for a very specific reason, one which we'll get to later. But you can tell that he's different as he has the ability to lie. A common predicament the player will have in this game is whether to lie about a certain event to an NPC, such as this woman who wants us to find her baby. When we go to the instructed location, we find no survivors, but we do find a doll, and seeing as the old woman is losing her sight due to the petrification, we can tell her that the doll is her daughter and she would be none the wiser. Most of the choices are like this, but with various different circumstances. I did initially like the concept, but the choices felt a bit undercooked, as these choices don't really matter. Lying or telling the truth in this game only results in a change of dialogue as you still get the same rewards. The primary reason is that it's not what the lies are that matters, but whether or not you decided to lie in the first place. Lying and telling the truth enough times is what decides the ending, and while that's fine, I think the occasional consequence could have been interesting. Either way, once you have managed to make it through the first set of puppets, including the boss of the area, the Parade Master, you'll make it to the hotel where we're introduced to our base of operations and the title screen. As introductions go, Lies of P starts off quite well. There's enough mystery surrounding the world that it makes you want to uncover its dark secrets, although at least for me, a lot of that came from the intrigue of Pinocchio's history. It'd be quite foolish to make a story about Pinocchio and at least not take into consideration what makes that character so special. And as I said, Lies of P does excel at keeping that idea in mind, by letting you deal with certain moral quandaries and seeing how these conversations shape our boy, quite literally in some ways. For a new release that really has to focus on exposition and detail so that the audience can be caught up to speed while also giving the player enough time to get a feel for the gameplay, I think Lies of P does a great job bringing the player into the world of Krat. Inside the hotel is a group of guests who are taking refuge from the destruction. The one with the most importance is Sophia, or as I like to call her, Lady Ronnie, which, now that I think about it, is rather funny given Ronnie was a puppet in that game. Either way, Lunar Princess Ronnie here tells us that while we do likely have questions about what's going on, what's more important is finding Geppetto, as he'll be able to answer any of the questions we have. So we head off to Elysian Boulevard to find him. Along the way we'll also run into a stalker called the Mad Donkey. He's seen right outside Geppetto's carriage attempting to get in because he wants to find out why all of his friends were killed by the puppets, so naturally he goes to Geppetto for some answers. We manage to stop him before he goes too far though, but we can see that this whole disaster is really taking a toll on everyone. We'll end up seeing a few more examples like this throughout the game, and I really think it's one of the game's strongest aspects. It's one thing to say that there's a disaster, but it's another to actually show it, and while the game does do that through its excellent environmental storytelling, having NPCs do the job instead allows for more emotion to come through, really hammer home how badly this whole thing has become. Unfortunately, Geppetto isn't in the mood to talk because of course he isn't. So we have to do one more thing before we can get some answers, and that's getting rid of the puppets at City Hall. The boss of this new location is the Scrapped Watchman, a giant puppet policeman. From the relevant item descriptions, we learn that this specific puppet was a mascot of sorts. Many people came to enjoy the puppet's company and thanked it for keeping the city safe. Its life would be cut short, however, as it was equipped with an overcharged storage battery that exceeded its capacity, causing a chain explosion that damaged most of its body and internal systems. As a result, it was going to be disposed of, but Venini wanted to test some experiments on it to see how far they could push their technology. For some odd reason though, it was still able to perform some of its mascot roles and is still very popular with the children. In fact, its boss soul item description says that while it was contorted and broken from the adult's desires, he never forgot the children who considered him a friend. It's a very heartwarming story for a horrific of a game as this is, but not only does it show how much the puppets have affected the people of Krat as they started seeing some of them as mascots, but more importantly how some of the puppets are starting to show emotion. Puppets realistically are just machines, they don't have any complex thoughts and feelings like humans do, but this puppet clearly cared about the kids. He even kept a doll that they made of him on his person at all times. It's this idea of puppets displaying more human-like emotions that continues to be brought up throughout the game, but for now it's just used as an introduction and an interesting showcase foreshadowing the events to come. With that over though, we can now talk to Geppetto, who is elated to see his son, but also understands that work still needs to be done, so he sends us off on another mission, which is to liberate a few places in Krat from puppet control. These are Venigni Works, the same for Angelico Cathedral, the Malum District, and Rosa Isabel Street. Sadly, the game does not really offer as much freedom as it sounds, as while we do get to visit all these locations over time, the map is pretty linear, so we're forced to go through a set order, starting with Venigni and his workshop. Venigni Works mass produces puppets, so as long as the puppets have control of the facility, they have access to unlimited reinforcements, which is more than enough reason to put it out of business. The workshop is another good look at the horrors of this world thanks to this area's boss. Admittedly, it's not super important, but it is a scary sign of how obsessed the people of Krat were with the puppets. Some of the puppets you fight throughout this game are massive. One slight malfunction and these things could kill someone, but this thing is absurd. Obviously the puppets were not designed to kill people, but it really starts to put things into perspective when you realize that they most definitely can kill people, they're just being held back by a code of law, a code that is also not currently working. It's a classic tale of humanity being overly greedy with technology and then paying the price for it, but this puppet is where I really started to appreciate the design of these enemies, as yeah, the variety isn't super impressive, but the designs of them are. Each of them is incredibly distinct, and you could tell immediately what they were made to do just by their designs. And we're never told what this thing's purpose is, but given its size and the 2 giant balls for hands, this puppet was likely a replacement for wrecking ball construction vehicles. On the topic of that, Liza P rarely delves into the impact of having this many puppets and how this could affect the workers. As from what I can tell, most people are actually pretty happy with them, despite the fact that numerous puppets are realistically designed to take people's jobs. It's kind of an unfortunate mishap, as I don't recall ever meeting anyone in this game who's annoyed at the puppet's existence. That being said, it does end up working out well narratively, but in a different way, as while the people of Krat don't harbor negative feelings towards these inventions, they do sensationalize them. Everyone in this city loves these things, and it's causing lots of the public opinion to be centered around them, which is why there's such demand for these things. That's also why the new designs have to be bigger and better, like the giant puppet we just talked about, or this thing that looks like a smaller version of an armored core mech. It's almost like the inventors are saying, a robot with 2 giant drills and saws for hands? Fuck it, let's send it to the assembly team. And it's this greedy attitude that would be the city's downfall, as their greatest asset has become their greatest nightmare. But of course, while some would see this disaster and develop some humility from it, the greedy CEO himself, Venigni, isn't too concerned. He's scared for his life, sure, but the way he talks almost pisses me off at times. Like how he calls Krat his city, or how he never wastes a moment to gloat about what he's accomplished and what he's done to deserve his spot in life. What makes it worse is that he's not the only person who's focused on themselves here, although this other lot's reasoning makes a lot more sense. Nearby is a duo of stalkers named Red Fox and Black Cat. They were originally hired by Venigni to take care of the puppet at the base of the factory, but backed out once they realized that the job was way above their pay grade. These schmucks are probably one of the most annoying people in the game, as they always force us to do all the work. Such as later when we're going to take down the Black Rabbit Brotherhood and the 2 offered to join, but after going about 30 feet, the cat goes, "Oh, sorry mate, I gotta take a breather. Go on ahead, won't you?" And then they leave, forcing us to take them down ourselves. While both of them are borderline incompetent at times, it mirrors their original roles in the novel, as it's mentioned that a cat and a fox would constantly harass Pinocchio by stealing or tricking him every time they meet. The duo even tried to hang him at one time, but he's a puppet, so oxygen isn't really a necessity for him. The game also carries over the blindness bit from the story, as the 2 animals lie about being disabled in order to con Pinocchio into giving them money. But by the end of the story, they actually become the things they lied about. And Liza P, the Black Cat, actually seems to be going blind already and asks us for fruits that he can ease the pain. Speaking of which, quite a few NPCs and bosses in this game end up suffering fates that they wished upon other people. Instead of it being about the city and its greedy attitude towards evolution through technology, the characters usually suffer from different kinds of greed, whether that be the literal desire of wealth or wanting something that's not yours, and once again, it's another example of this game's impressive message and theme. Anyway, this puppet that the duo refuses to kill is Fuoco, who is also a reference to the novel, although it's not as direct as our 2 stalkers. Fuoco is Mangia Fuoco from the novel, who in the story got pissed at Pinocchio for ruining his puppet show, and as payment decided to use him as firewood for his dinner. As you can see, that's not anything like our puppet furnace here, but the usage of fire is where the connection lies. As for Fuoco the puppet, he's in charge of the furnace down here, and Venigni wants us to defeat him and also check to make sure his butler Puccinella is safe. Something interesting about this boss though is that multiple pieces of lore refer to some kind of king of puppets that Fuoco worships. You can even see him talk about it in this garbled speech that you can sorta make out. Both of these are connected though, so we'll talk about this later. But once again, this is another strange example of the puppets not doing what they were designed to do. We have a police officer who's growing feelings for humans, and now they're crowning kings. None of it makes sense in the slightest, but reinforces what I talked about earlier, how Liza P is really good at piling on the intrigue and slowly but surely feeding you a breadcrumb trail of info. Past the factory is Moonlight Town, a rundown place that used to be the start of the people's pilgrimages when they were heading to the cathedral. Moonlight also collaborated with the current Archbishop of the cathedral, Andreas, as both locations became colleagues over time. So Andreas would help the people of Moonlight in any way he could, and in turn the town would spread the word of his good deeds. As you would expect though, the town is vacant thanks to the puppets running wild and killing everyone. But once we reach the cable car that takes us to the cathedral, we're greeted by a horrifying creature with blue blood all over its body. As we'll soon see, the entire cathedral is overrun by these things, and size and symptoms seem to vary constantly. As if the monster is going to get any more terrifying, we find one of the biggest so far, who is our next boss, Archbishop Andreas himself. Gross would be putting it mildly. The man is hideous, but given his related appearance to the other monsters, we can assume the same thing happened to him. According to the legend, Saint Frangelico met with a one-winged angel and founded a church with his name on it. It's unclear how long ago that meeting was, but eventually Saint Frangelico would pass away and someone be appointed as the head of the church. In the modern day, that person is Archbishop Andreas. He was such a kind and good-hearted person that many people believed he was Frangelico himself. But that's just what the public sees, as underneath all that is a greedy archbishop who was unable to acknowledge how corrupt he was becoming, so he made up a lie saying that he was chosen by a one-winged angel too. Well, as a way of karmic justice, Andreas became the thing he made up. He became a one-winged angel, at least appearance-wise anyway. Judging by his death dialogue though, he seems to have regretted this and wished that he could just return to the old him before the greed came. This is likely referring to a diary of his which talks about his meeting with the alchemists. Andreas claimed that the alchemists are ruining Krat and that they should have been cast away when they arrived all those years ago, further saying that this disaster was divine punishment and that Krat is a city blessed by God and one that Andreas will do his best to save. This, coupled with the monsters we saw in the church, is really starting to point to the alchemists being the core of the problems here in Krat. At this point though, all we know is that the alchemists are trying to figure out how to stop the puppet frenzy, but seeing as we haven't seen any of them all game, this is likely a lie. Moving on though, once Andreas is defeated, we see a quick cutscene that is obviously of our main villain, before going behind the cathedral to the Path of the Pilgrim, which leads right to the Malum district. Sadly, there isn't much to say about the Malum district, except the fact that it's a fairly poor and rundown district within Krat. Given its close proximity to the church, Andreas likely tried to help them as much as he could, but he can only do so much. Both puppets and monsters now stalk the streets of these places, but the main antagonists of the area are the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. We saw them earlier in the game, but this is our first official meeting with the group. We also get to meet with the Stalkers again. We saw it back at Vanini's workshop, and it's here where they have that conversation about us joining forces and then bailing almost immediately. It would have actually been nice if they helped too, as the group gangs up on you throughout the fight. They also don't drop a boss soul this time, as the fight only ends when the big brother dies. But from what we can gather, they're also a group of stalkers, but unlike the bastards of the sweepers, they only answer to themselves. It's a bit light on the details, at least when it comes to other bosses that we've already discussed, but that's mainly because they'll return a bit later for a second round. Having said that, we can see from their various journals that they were in talks with the alchemist, as they have a ledger that details some of their recent business transactions. One of the notes talks about a gold coin tree, which is this giant tree behind their base. It said that the tree's fruit is able to cure any kind of disease possible. We'll actually be able to use this tree to help alleviate some of the pain Lady Antonia is going through due to the petrification. And a new NPC, Giangio, also wants us to help him find the tree. The door behind the tree also leads right back into the hotel, which makes me wonder why no one mentioned this and why they didn't just open the door from the hotel side. But sure. Inside the Brotherhood base though is also a painting of Pinocchio, which is strange. If we take it back to Geppetto, he thanks us for the painting, but he doesn't mention that Pinocchio is on it. He just says that this is a memory of his from a happier time. You would think the two would talk about this, but he just brushes it aside, which is a little odd, but something that will come back around later. After their talk, Geppetto tells us that Lady Antonia has the key to Rosa Isabel Street, which is what we'll need to get to the King of Puppets and hopefully stop this frenzy once for all. Rosa Isabel is a well-known entertainment district within Krat. Its most famous resident is Adelina Corday, the singer in the red dress. We can actually meet Adelina along with her sister Patricia. Patricia had always wanted to sing with her sister, as her dream was to one day be on the same grand stage together. Adelina, on the other hand, may have not shared that same dream. She says that she wanted her sister's voice and would do anything to get it. Well, one day she had her drink poison, which ruined her golden voice, allowing Adelina to take center stage for the rest of her career. It's a really sad tale, as the sisters exchange lockets with each other, and you can tell that Patricia really loved her sister but has no idea that love wasn't reciprocated back, as she doesn't even know about her sister poisoning her. This is also why we fight Patricia, as she decided to become a stalker due to her singing career basically being over. So in a roundabout way, her death is on Adelina's hands, not ours. The main reason we're here though is not for the prima donna, but for the King of Puppets himself. But once we arrive at the theater, we see a play being performed by some of the puppets, which shows Geppetto taking out Pinocchio's heart and putting it into another puppet. This most certainly will not be relevant later. Afterwards, the King of Puppets arrives to do battle, but after killing him, we see another being inside challenge us called Romeo. Once Romeo dies though, we're then given a necklace as a reward that says, "To Romeo from your friend C." To spoil it ahead of time, C is referring to Carlo, or more specifically, our Pinocchio here. That boy in the painting is Carlo, but we aren't technically Carlo, we're a puppet that looks like him. Carlo is the real son of Geppetto, that's why Geppetto cares so much about Pinocchio, as he's a spitting image of his son who passed away. But if Romeo is the king, then why did he start the puppet frenzy? Well, he may not have. His boss soul says that one day he woke up on a throne that wasn't his, implying he was just forced into this king position. Furthermore, at some point in the game, Vanini gives us an ergo wave decoder, which is what we used to figure out how the frenzy started, and we learn that Romeo was communicating through ergo waves, or for a lack of a better word, Bluetooth, to communicate with the other puppets across the city. He did this because he discovered what the alchemists were up to and wants to stop them before they achieve their goal. Unfortunately, we don't learn about the alchemists and their plan until later, after Romeo has already died. He also used this to communicate with us, as Romeo actually wanted us to join him and had sent messengers to recruit us, which were all the puppet bosses we just defeated. Do you remember those garbled subtitles that appear during these fights? Well, they also appear here, and if you look closely enough, you can pick out some of the words. To summarize, they basically talk about Romeo or how Romeo wants Pinocchio to join them. If it's too hard to read though, on New Game Plus the text is actually clear, which is a nice touch. That's why the king extends his hand to us. Romeo has no intention of fighting, he only did that as a last resort. Romeo doesn't just see Pinocchio as another puppet, but also a dear friend, which is another nod to the novel since Romeo and Pinocchio were also friends there too. Both versions of the character also have the nickname Lambwick as well. But that still doesn't explain who started the frenzy. Well, he clears that up too. Within the ergo waves was a message for us that says that Geppetto was the cause of the frenzy. That's because Geppetto created a fifth law called Law Zero, that says that the creator's name is Geppetto, meaning that while the puppets will obey their creators and masters, Geppetto's command specifically overrules them. Unfortunately, we can't speak to him about this, as this conversation happens way later in the game after Geppetto is kidnapped from the hotel, but I figured I should bring this up now since we're talking about Romeo. Even without that conversation though, Geppetto and his motivations haven't exactly been clear, so it's always been useful to watch your back around him. This is just further confirmation to keep doing just that. Turning back the clock to when we defeated the King of Puppets, once we walk outside the theater we find Geppetto who's out back waiting for us. With the Puppet King dead, the remaining puppets will have no way to operate as tactically as before, which means the only thing left to do is to figure out how to cure the petrification disease. And for that, Geppetto wants us to go to the Grand Exhibition and meet with the alchemists, as they're supposedly developing a cure for it. Along the way, we'll find some of the puppets mourning over the loss of their king, further showing that these puppets aren't just robotic pieces of wood and metal. That said, it just seems to be this location, as the other areas both before and after this have the puppets behave just like before. To be fair, I can forgive this, as it would make the puppet-controlled areas a breeze to complete, thus ruining the point of the challenging gameplay. Once we make it to the Grand Exhibition, we can see that this place was used to showcase all the new technology that was being developed for Krot. There are various different types of robots and puppets, including that puppet of the future boss we fought earlier, as well as some other designs for the other industries within Krot. What's odd though is that some of the designs say volunteers wanted, and most of the equipment here is gurneys, along with dozens of humanoid beings that look mangled. This one in particular has numerous bandages and cloth wrapped around it like they were just being detained. Everything here points to human experimentation by the way of the alchemists, and this is all but confirmed by the area's boss, Victor the Champion. He used to be a circus performer who was seen as the pinnacle of humanity's abilities. He was loved by many within Krot until he was stricken with an incurable illness. However, thanks to the alchemist, he was able to live again and be at his peak indefinitely. So it's clear that the alchemists have been conducting experiments on humans, and if you were still somehow skeptical about it, the leader of the alchemists, Simon Monis, straight up tells us that, yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. He claims that the petrification disease can actually strengthen humanity, and by overcoming it, the human body can grow stronger and gain a mind free of lies. This is all possible thanks to Ergo, as Ergo is basically the essence of a person's life force and memory, but trapped in a crystallized form, thanks to the petrification disease hardening the body. Ergo was also put into the core of all the puppets, which is why some of them started awakening their egos. Polendina, for example, despite being a puppet, is in love with Lady Antonia. We can also find a note that talks about a woman named Camille who was likely the first ever puppet to awaken her ego. Despite her initial design being quite basic, she was able to quickly save a child from falling out of a crib, which shocked some of the alchemists. According to their notes, it seems like a puppet's ego has a possibility of awakening faster if the human the Ergo belongs to is in a similar role. Camille, for example, was a maid puppet, meaning she was likely a maid before dying, which is why her maidly instincts kicked in during that moment. From Camille, the alchemist discovered that Ergo isn't just a simple crystal, but something that can open the door to eternal life. Simon and the alchemist's goal from then on was to achieve immortality, and they believe that Ergo is the way to do it. After this, Simon bids us farewell as he welcomes us to his island so we can see what the true evolution will look like. To get there though, we need to go to the Barren Swamp, as Vanini says that a rare piece of gold and Ergo we needed to make it to the island. The Barren Swamp is, well, a swamp, because of course a game like this has to have one. But it's also a dumping ground for all the discarded puppets that the city doesn't use anymore. As you can imagine, that is a lot of unused Ergo, and thanks to that, one of the alchemist's experimental creations was able to feast on this Ergo and grow in size and strength. The green monster of the swamp is that creation, and like Andreas, is quite hideous. The green monster is likely a reference to the green fisherman, who in the tale was going to cook Pinocchio thinking he was some kind of rare fish before being saved by a mastiff known as Alidoro. In here, Alidoro does the complete opposite, and has us be bait while he fetches an item the monster took a long time ago, which actually fits in line with how Alidoro acts. Around this time, the player will likely encounter an earthquake, which from large spikes of blue crystals that have completely overtaken the city of Krot along with the monsters. Thanks to us killing Romeo, the puppets that were initially holding back the monsters weren't able to, causing more of them to flood into the streets. Nearby is also the Workshop Tower, with a boss inside called the Waker of Illusions. There's a lore document nearby that mentions Victor, implying that all of this happened recently, saying that Victor was incomplete and that this person would be the owner of the complete elixir, which is what Simon is trying to perfect so that he can evolve humanity. After its defeat, Sophia contacts us and says that the hotel is under attack, and upon arriving we see that Geppetto has been kidnapped by the Black Brotherhood, our stalker duo, and Alidoro. I know I kind of brushed past him a second ago, but Alidoro is someone we come across when exploring the cathedral. He claims to be a treasure hunter and a stalker, but through some conversations with other people, we learn that this person was actually just a friend of Alidoro's who ended up getting into an argument with him and killed him as a result. This friend then took his costume and posed as the famous Alidoro, the one who saved all the people in the workshop. Thankfully though, everyone is alive, including the hotel cat, who is arguably the most important member of the hotel. From here we are told to play a certain chord on the piano in order to gain access to a secret entrance that leads to the relic of Trismegistus, as it's the only way to get inside the Isle of the Alchemists. So once again, Lady Antonia has a key but doesn't tell us. Look, I know you're likely senile already, but help me help you, you know? At the bottom of this level are the Black Rabbit Brotherhood who want to challenge us again. It's pretty similar to the previous fight, and as such there isn't much to talk about, except that halfway through the fight the older brother comes back but looks a lot more like Victor from the Grand Exhibition. The alchemists seem to have found a way to revive the eldest brother, which is kinda horrifying if you think about it. Behind them is where Alidoro is stationed and where he confesses to killing Alidoro and then impersonating him. The reason he participated in the kidnapping at the hotel was because the alchemists promised to get him out of the city if they succeeded. In fact, all of the stalkers were given the same promise. However, we end up meeting with all of them throughout this section, so we'll never know if the alchemists were actually going to make good on their promise. With the Brotherhood finally dead, nothing is stopping us from getting to the island, except Pinocchio's driving as he beaches the entire submarine instead of just resurfacing it. Waiting for us on the beach is Sophia. Here is where she reveals to us that her real body is not the one at the hotel, as her real body is actually at the top of the alchemist tower. Earlier she told us that the reason she woke us up was to save Krat, which is a fairly reasonable thing to do, but she lied, as she only revived us to save her. Sophia is the daughter of Valentius, the original leader of the alchemists. Simon Manus was Valentius' right-hand man, but when Simon took over, things started to change. Around this time, Sophia was also able to awaken her ergo powers, which is described as manipulating time. She ended up becoming so well versed with these powers that Simon kept her here as his tool. Due to this, she wants us to kill her once we find her. She's suffered enough and just wants peace now. To get to where she's at though, we need to cross the beach, which she says is filled with memories thanks to the ergo flowing through the area. These memories we see are of Carlo and Romeo before they died and were replaced with puppets. The two of them grew up together in the Monad charity house. Sophia likely knows of the boys too, as Sophia's last name is Monad, and there was a flyer with her name written on it for the charity house. The two of them would then meet with a legendary stalker and asked if they could train with her. She says no and tells Gemini to tell them off. This either means that Gemini was also a stalker, or at the very least human, which might explain the bloodstains surrounding him when we first meet, or Gemini was always a cricket but worked with the stalker. Unfortunately, lots of the details are unknown, as we don't hear anything else about Gemini, and we also don't know how Carlo died, but we obviously know that he dies because Pinocchio is made to look like him. Upon arriving at the tower, we now begin the slow descent up, which almost feels like padding at this point given how long it takes to climb, plus I was already 30 hours into the playthrough at this point. To make matters worse, there are also 3 more boss fights, or 1 if you play your cards right. The Red Fox and the Black Cat are here at the tower and tells us that Simon promised them a way out of the city if they cooperated. She doesn't care about Simon's promise though, as she just wants to be with her brother. If we give both of them gold coin fruit, this prevents us from fighting them. If we refuse, then we have to battle. According to their equipment though, it seems like the Black Cat was an orphan and that convinced the Red Fox that he was her brother. Over time though, he felt really bad about lying to her, and a part of him actually wished that it was true because she really cared for him. The Red Fox belonged to a family of high society, if the clothing didn't give it away. But she seems to have left and distanced herself from them due to her brother, who as we know isn't actually her brother. For annoying as these two can be, they do really have a touching story attached to them, and honestly, I couldn't really see myself fighting them. Mainly because of the aforementioned problem of me being 30 hours in and just wanting to hit credits, but honestly, they weren't really bad people. Unlike Alidoro, they presumably haven't murdered anyone, and anything they did that could have been malicious was probably just to save the other. Speaking of devoting your life to protecting someone, the one boss we can't skip is Laxasia, Simon's guard. Laxasia is completely covered in metallic armor and easily wins best boss design in the game. According to her boss soul, Laxasia used to be a woman called Adriana, but after being baptized by the elixir, she became the first whole being. The only thing that was different about her was that her feelings for Simon can never be erased. So she decided to become the guard in metal armor, sworn to protect Simon until her death. Behind her is Sophia's room, and yeah, I can kinda see why she wanted us to kill her. Still, we are given the option to keep her alive if we're that sadistic. If we do kill her, we get gray hair, which is an interesting reward, but this isn't the only time this happens. If you lie enough times throughout the game, Sophia will speak to you and then all of a sudden you have long hair. Gameplay-wise, it's just a neat cosmetic, but narratively it's meant to show that Pinocchio is changing into a human, as puppet hair doesn't grow. Just like all the decisions though, what you do doesn't really matter, as she ends up dying shortly after anyway. It's a real shame, honestly, because that same thing happens with Lady Antonia, as regardless of whether or not you chose the cure, she still dies. The only difference is that she gives you a letter thanking you for making her final moments happier. I'm not saying it has to affect the main story, but just something, anything, would have been nice. The other person who's been captured in the tower is Geppetto, who we can tell off for being a bad father, but all that changes is a line of dialogue. At the very top is none other than Simon Manus, who is starting to look like Solomon Grundy. Simon's
pie. Songitto said, yes. Asura said, oh nice. Songitto said, doing recap of story. Asura said, how was it? Songitto said, "Well, it is a good soul-like game."
His history is fascinating. His motivation is less so. Simon's writing seemed to imply that his father was a
Asura
god, as he wrote a
said,
confession before taking the
"Nice."
elixir that states that the being that created him was no normal human. Given his father, it would make sense that Simon was a god too, especially since his boss soul says that the boy was among those who are made to live an immortal life, however he was deemed a failure and abandoned. This godlike being also gave him the ability to read minds, and by now we've heard this mentioned a few times. Back at the train station is a secret door that has a letter from Simon addressed to us, where he says that he's able to read minds and thanks us for being able to find the relic that he lost. One of the test subjects who managed to hide from the monsters also says that he was forced to consume ergo in order to read minds. It's so bad that he can't even think or dream about things, it's just constant thoughts of other people's dreams. The problem came when Simon's father betrayed him and cast him out of wherever he came from. He felt hurt by this and vowed to create a world where no one can lie, and he thinks that summoning God can achieve this. Lots of notes in this game seem to point to Simon being more of a major player than previously thought, as the group's version of a Bible is called So Said Pistris, and Simon's full name is Simon Pistris Manus. Now, I'm definitely willing to believe that Simon is that egotistical to name the group's text after himself, but I do wonder if the one-winged angel Saint Frangelico saw was Simon. A one-winged angel symbolized an angel cast out of heaven, and Simon was cast out by his father. Where it starts to get a little rocky though is that item he carries with him called the Arm of God. It's implied that this name is no figure of speech, but the literal arm of a god who came to Earth and shed his body so that humanity could be immortal. Part of me wants to believe that this was Simon's arm, who somehow managed to then infiltrate a group that was worshipping him, but I'm not too confident in that theory. Either way, Simon's main goal is to become immortal and prevent the spread of lies. It's just a bit corny, I guess. Immortality has been an end goal that's been used hundreds of times across all media, so it's not anything unique. Where the difference lies is the reasoning behind the immortality. Usually it just ends up with the main villain going, "I want to be immortal so I can rule the world," which is exactly what Simon wants, and that's pretty bland. I do like the part where he talks about proving his father wrong, but the rest is quite boring. The lying part is also disappointing as it feels tacked on for the sake of the fairy tale. Pinocchio and lying are synonymous, but none of that involves Simon. I get the idea of preventing lies because his father lied and then betrayed him, but it feels shoehorned in at times because you can't have a Pinocchio story without a heavy emphasis on lying. Outside of that though, Simon himself is absent for about 90% of the story. I mean, think about how much time we've actually spent talking about him. We've barely interacted with him or his group. The only three alchemists we meet are the Door Guardian, Laxasia, and Simon, and all of that happens in the last 3 hours of the game. Most of his villainy comes from his actions rather than his presence, and I will admit, it does work at times, like with Victor or the victims of the cathedral, but I feel like you need to be more present in the script. With Simon dead though, the alchemists have been defeated and Krat is saved, but when we go down below the arena, we're greeted by Geppetto. He congratulates us on defeating Simon and says that with the Arm of God we can become human again. All we need to do is give him our heart and we'll become a real boy. When he says we though, he's not talking about us. He's talking about who we look like. Carlo. If you obey, then you're given the bad ending, where Geppetto rips out our heart and places it in the body of another puppet. He and the new Carlo then return to the hotel before packing their things and leaving, but as we go, we see the dead bodies of Eugenie, Vanini, and Puccinella. And when we gain back control, we see that our friends have now become puppets. If we, however, refuse, then we have to fight the puppet that's in the box. It's another two-phase fight, where the puppet starts using blood-related attacks that I swear I've seen before. According to the achievement, this nameless puppet was the first puppet Geppetto ever made, possibly meaning that Carlo's death and his plan to revive him was what got him into making puppets in the first place. But during the scuffle, Geppetto will reveal to us that Pinocchio was never a part of the Grand Covenant like the other puppets, because we still have Carlo's memories inside of us. One thing I'm still puzzled about though is that puppet frenzy, as I don't recall the game ever bringing this up again after the fight with Romeo, which makes me question why Geppetto did it to begin with. Romeo has no reason to lie to us, and if he's telling the truth, why would Geppetto start the frenzy and then ask us to stop Romeo? At the end of it all he wants to do is revive his son, but how does the puppet frenzy accomplish that? Geppetto apparently needed a vast amount of ergo as well as the Arm of God in order to achieve this. He never states where that source of ergo is coming from though, as the tower is not only filled with it thanks to us defeating the bosses, but we also have a ton of it inside of us due to leveling up. Plus, he didn't even know Pinocchio was alive until we found him, since Sophia was the one who revived us, not him. He also doesn't seem to want Krat destroyed either, as after this ending he talks about dealing with the rest of the puppets and the petrification disease. Romeo once again could be lying to us, but I really can't imagine he would as he has no reason to. Genuinely do let me know if I missed something here, because I don't recall this ever being elaborated on again, but I could be wrong. In a way though, I do kind of respect his motives. As at its core, it's really just a father who wants his son back, but seeing as Pinocchio was essentially made to be an organ donor for the real Carlo, we're not going to let him do that. It also showcases a flaw in Geppetto's thinking, as he could have had his son the whole time had he just treated Pinocchio like one instead of seeing him as the puppet who would have saved his son's life. This idea of Pinocchio being a real boy is also what decides our ending. All throughout the game, we're given the choice to lie or tell the truth. Telling the truth gives us the good ending, where right at the end of the fight, the puppet goes for the killing blow before being stopped by Geppetto, as the puppet started having a mind of its own and realized that it was going to destroy Pinocchio's heart, which would have ruined Geppetto's plan. In the good ending, Pinocchio then holds Geppetto in his final moments as he curses him for just being another puppet. If you've been lying throughout the whole game though, then you get the true ending, where Geppetto realizes that he was wrong and that Pinocchio was always the son he wanted, as he sees a single tear fall from his cheek, showing that he is now officially a real boy. He then goes back up the tower and somehow magically makes a puppet with blue hair and ergo so he can give Sophia a chance at life. I know I called her Ronnie as a joke earlier, but this is starting to become a bit uncanny. It seems like Pinocchio dies here, but when we go back to the hotel, we get a letter from Sophia thanking us for reviving her. What I assume happened is he just collapsed from exhaustion due to his body now becoming human and catching up with all the stress that he put on it throughout the game, but I could be wrong. Regardless of what ending you get though, an after credit cutscene shows Giangio talking with someone. He claims that the Krot disaster was an experiment and that a new brother was born into eternal life, likely referring to us. Giangio also seems to be an alchemist, as when we talk to Polendina about getting a cure to save Lady Antonia, he says that a well-known alchemist might be able to help her. But the person who gives us the cure is Giangio, possibly implying that he's a part of their organization. Also, his other name according to the cutscene is Paracelsus, who is an actual alchemist in real life. The last line has one of the more interesting implications though, as Giangio claims that his next target is a girl named Dorothy, before showing a scene of a girl with red heels walking on a rooftop in Krot. I assume this is the Dorothy he's talking about, and if so, the only Dorothy I know of with red shoes is the one from The Wizard of Oz. If that's true, this means that coupled with Pinocchio, Giangio and his companions are hunting down main characters from other fairy tales. I don't want to say this is fact, but there are way too many coincidences for that not to be. Either way, this thing with Dorothy is likely setting up a future DLC for the game, but at the moment we have no news on if or when that will be released. With that though, we have now come to the end of Lies of P, a fairy tale Souls-like that has quite a mysterious story. Let me know what you think about the game in the video in the comments down below. Also let me know what ending you got if you played the game. As always, like the video if you do enjoy and subscribe if you're new. Check out my other story related content on the channel if this video interests you. Thank you to my returning viewers coming back to another video, and take care everyone. Goodbye.
Okay, guy. I'm also saying goodbye. Let me... Yeah, I'll be back soon. Wait.